Sometimes love isn't enough. As an adoptive mom, people would often say this to me, as if to imply I couldn't love my son enough to change behaviors or heal his trauma, so I should probably just give up. At least that's how I took those four powerful words, which had buried themselves deeply in my mind, leading me to doubt my ability to parent my child. Sometimes love isn't enough. That is the truth. Oftentimes, you need love and powerful, personalized tools to raise a child who's experienced trauma and disrupted attachment, or a child who you're struggling to connect with. I am on a mission to help parents raising kids with a tricky past to show up with unconditional love and practical tools to lovingly manage even the most challenging of times. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Plus, if you like what you hear, I'd love for you to leave a review. Now let's get to the good stuff. Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. I'm your host, Angie Grandt. And for this episode, I want to talk about resiliency. I know several years ago, the topic of resiliency has come up a lot, right? I was a licensed foster parent, an adoptive parent. I've been through an incredible amount of training, workshops, certifications related to raising kids from trauma and a tricky past. And resiliency is something that comes up quite often in those trainings. I don't know if you've ever heard of the ACEs study, but it was a study done a while back that really looked at some key factors actually of resiliency in kids and talks about how when we experience certain things as young children, that it has an impact on our health, our physical health as we as adults. And so the more ACEs that you have, the more likely you are to experience health problems as we get older, which can be a real clear indicator of resiliency. We often talk about how resilient kids can be, but I I find it just so necessary to look deeper into resiliency. Because when we are raising kids who come from a tricky past, we often see kids who are incredibly resilient in so many ways, but also kids who continue to have some really key struggles in some really key areas. So, as I've been learning about human design and really wrapping my head around that, one of the things that I'm really loving to put together and to make sense of and to use to support the parents that I'm serving is this concept of resiliency. And so why is resiliency important? Well, when we're resilient, we are better able to fulfill our purpose, to show up as the person that we're supposed to be in all areas of life. When we are resilient, we can go through tricky things and come out as a more as a complete person, right? We know that when our resiliency is compromised, that traumas early on in our life can be very impactful. So, I want to talk about what I've been learning about from my coach as the 9 resiliency keys, which are really at the root of healing, at the root of being healthy, at at the root of who we are and how we show up. They are also um, they're also really key indicators in how our pain and trauma comes out in us. And um, a lot of there's a lot of kind of evidence that shows that these resiliency keys are in specific parts of our human design chart, which I find fascinating. So, I want to talk about the 9 keys and just talk about how they might show up for for us and for our kids, and to really just think about how necessary these nine keys are to living a fulfilled happy life. So, the first resiliency key is lovability. And the question is, can you really be loved and accepted for who you are? When we're struggling with feeling lovable, which I think I've shared this in a previous episode, but being lovable and being loved are two different things. When we think about a dog, right? A dog to one person can be oh so lovable, and you can't wait to have their kisses all over your face and you want to snuggle up with them. But that exact same dog will not be so lovable to somebody who's not a dog person. And somebody else who's not a dog person might not see that dog as lovable at all and might, in fact, see them as annoying or scary or whatever they see them as, right? The lovability is less about the the person and more about the perceptions. So when we think about our own lovability, it really is about our own perceptions about ourselves. Can you be loved and accepted for who you are? Because it doesn't matter if my neighbor thinks I'm lovable or even my family members. It matters if I myself see myself as being lovable, see myself as being loved and accepted for who I am. So that's the first key of resiliency is lovability. And really asking yourself that question, can I be loved and accepted for who I am? Because if you don't feel fully lovable and accepted for who you are, if you are questioning your lovability, questioning whether or not you can really be yourself and be lovable being yourself, then that's something that we can work on. Understanding that about yourself is something that can be specifically targeted and changed. It doesn't have to be your truth. It doesn't have to be your story. And that's the same for all of these 9 keys, is that first it's about understanding you and your own resiliency keys and how you're doing with them. And then it's about doing something about it because your truth today doesn't have to be your truth tomorrow. So the next one is empowerment. So when we think about this resiliency key, the question is, do you feel like you have control over your own life? Do you feel like you get to make the decisions in your life, or do you feel like you're a victim to what's happening to you in your life? Do you feel like your life just is what it is and it's going to be what it's going to be, and you don't have any control over that? If that's your story, then you're not empowered, or you may not be empowered. You might not have that key fully in force within you, right? So ask yourself, do you feel like you have control over your own life? And if you don't, well, again, that's something that we can change. The next resiliency key is courage. So the question here is to ask yourself, does fear keep you from fulfilling your joy? I know in a recent recording, I was talking about my own fear of what other people might think about me making a decision to put myself out there as someone who supports adoptive parents. I had so much fear about what other people were going to think, even though my heart was telling me that I needed to put myself out there because there were parents who needed me. I knew that, and yet fear was getting in my way. So courage is something that I've been working on so that I could fulfill my own joy. And man, when I really fully stepped in and took that leap of faith and built up some courage to start showing up for other parents, the level of joy that I feel when I'm helping a parent to look at their relationship with their child differently, the level of joy that I feel is incredible. It is like no other because I worked on my courage. So ask yourself, does fear keep you from fulfilling your joy? The next key is decisiveness. So the question here is, do you know how to choose what's right for you? Do you even know what's right for you? Do you struggle with making decisions? I know that this is also something that I'm working on. I struggle with picking where I want to go for dinner, afraid that I might make the wrong decision, which I'm not really sure what the wrong decision is, but really understanding you and becoming someone who can be decisive about what's right for you is a powerful, powerful resiliency key in in fulfilling your sense of self and understanding what you really need. So then our next resiliency key is emotional wisdom. So the questions here, does emotional energy keep you from acting deliberately, or do you compromise what you want to keep others happy? So when I think about this one, I really think about um, for for those who really have emotional waves or um, moodiness, it might be called, is that for those who really have that moodiness where they're, kind of on the high emotional wave and the low emotional wave, for those who are really struggling with that or feel like they're struggling with it, is that is that emotional wave really keeping you from making decisions that you want to make, or are you making decisions sometimes from the high, sometimes from the low, and not really understanding that you have this wave and that it's consistent and that you can make decisions always from your best place, whatever that is. But if you don't understand your emotional wave, don't understand that that's part of you and how you make decisions, it can be really hard to make decisions from your best emotional place if you don't know that it's consistent. And the other question about, are you compromising what you want to keep others happy? It goes back to the topic we talked about recently about being a people pleaser and understanding praise versus encouragement and really understanding what you need, what you want versus what you're doing to keep other people happy. And I have met my fair share of people pleasers who will very convincingly assert that, but making other people happy is what makes me happy. And I'm here to tell you that that might be part of it, but is it really keeping you happy? Or is it just what you think right now is what is best for you because you're compromising your own happiness because you find some type of external joy in keeping others happy? It's really something to think about, really something to contemplate about, are your decisions making you happy, or do you think that you're happiest when you're making other people happy? Because that might not really be your truth. Because what happens if your decisions aren't making them happy? Then your happiness is contingent upon them being happy. And that isn't your truth. That's nobody's truth. That none of us are designed to not feel our own happiness. We're all designed to have our own happiness within us and it's not contingent upon other people. But we are all, many of us are conditioned to think that we're supposed to keep others happy, but that really isn't the truth. So, something else to just think about, wrap your head around, ask yourself those questions. The next resiliency key is self-trust. And so, do you trust yourself? Do you trust that you'll make the right decisions for you, for your happiness, to fulfill your purpose? When I was talking before about, or in a recording about trusting that I had the capacity to continue to show up for my son, I did not. I did not trust that I could continue showing up for him because my tank was empty, or my cup. I called it my cup. My cup was empty. I didn't have any more energy to give, and I didn't trust that I could keep showing up for him the way that I knew I needed to. Uh, Vitality is another key resiliency key. So the question is, are you fully expressing your vitality and energy? Do you feel that you have the energy, the vitality, the zest to show up for yourself, to show up for your purpose? Another important resiliency key. The next one is authenticity. So, do you feel free to be who you really are? Or do you feel like you continue to make decisions because of what you think other people need you to be? And then the last one is self-worth. So, the question to ask yourself is, do you know how valuable you are? Do you see your value as being your authentic self? Or do you see your value as being what other people need you to be? Do you know that just by being you, you bring so much value to your family, to your relationships, to people that you interact with? Or do you see that you have to continue to pretend to be somebody that you're not in order to feel like you have some type of self-worth? Because we are all innately valuable. All of us. We all have something so big to contribute to the world. When I think about these 9 resiliency keys and think about how important they are to our kids. The questions I was posing were for you because if you've been following along, you're probably picking up on that my approach to parenting is so much more about strategies for you to fully step into who you are and to make sure that your cup is full, and so much less about strategies for kids. Because this is where when I came to the realization that where things were going so horribly wrong in my relationship with my son was because I was trying so hard to fix him, but my cup was so empty. When I realized that, oh, I really do need to figure out how to change my mindset, change how I'm looking at our relationship, change how I'm showing up for him. I don't need to keep trying to change his behaviors. When I realized and started doing the work on me, our relationship did a 180. When I started really tapping in, and this was before I even knew about the connection between resiliency keys and human design, and really started to wrap my head around all of this. But I had a sense of it, right? When I started to really realize how much work I needed to do on me to change my relationship with my son, everything changed. Everything changed for me and my other relationships, but most importantly, everything changed for me and my relationship with my son. I stopped trying to fix him. I stopped trying to um, get him to act differently and really started to do the work on me and, quite frankly, on my resiliency keys. I really started to work, especially on my self-worth and my own sense of lovability, because that is at the foundation of all of the other resiliency keys. When you first work on those two and really understand how not only where they are in your human design chart to give you some real key, I keep using that word key, but to give you some really targeted places to start looking and start working on your energy, that is where you'll have the most impactful change on you and on your relationship with your child, is really starting with that lovability and self-worth. But it isn't just about you, right? We're parents. If you're here listening, you're either a parent or you're supporting parents who are raising kids who are struggling. Most likely, our kids who have challenging behaviors most likely struggle with their lovability or their sense of their lovability and their sense of self-worth. If we can help those two specific areas in our kids by responding to them differently and building up their sense of lovability, building up their sense of self-worth, you will see a change in their behaviors. You'll see a change in the other resiliency keys with them. When you really work on that foundation of lovability and self-worth, you'll see changes in your kids. So that's what I'm going to leave you with is how are you helping your kids with their sense of lovability and their sense of self-worth? Where can you shift how you're doing that for your kids to really have a powerful impact? And how are you doing it for yourself? If you don't know where to start, connect with me. All of my contact info is in the show notes. So check it out there. I would love, love, love to connect with you to help make these really powerful changes in your family as well. Take care, and we'll talk soon. I hope that you found this episode so incredibly powerful. Thank you for joining us for Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. If you resonated with what you heard here, please subscribe to this podcast and give us a review. You can also follow us on all the socials. Check the show notes for all the details about how to start tackling behaviors and creating a powerful, loving relationship with your child, a child who needs your love the most. And if your gut's telling you that it's time for a change now, book a free consult. I'd love to help you love unconditionally and show you that you have that power within you.